I could have never anticipated how one simple moment could stretch into an eternity, nor could I have fathomed the gravity of the revelation that awaited me in our shared space. It was a Wednesday, an ordinary day defined by the mundane rhythm of life, where the sun rose unceremoniously, casting its light over the well-trodden path we had forged together. But this day would deliver something far from ordinary, an unexpected unveiling cloaked in the guise of routine. I remember it vividly, the echo of a coffee cup grounding itself against the table, the lingering smell of familiarity wafting through the air, mingling oddly with an undercurrent of something more sinister. I had been sorting through a stack of files in my cramped home office when my eyes fell upon a battered box wedged beneath the desk. It was a remnant from our early days, a relic of laughter and whispered promises. I brushed off the accumulated dust, a thin veil that had cloaked a multitude of forgotten memories. But as I pried the box open, it revealed not just memories but a Pandora's box I never intended to unearth. At first they were innocent enough, pictures of our adventures framed in the jubilance of youth, snapshots of sunsets painted with love in every shade imaginable. My heart fluttered in nostalgia, a bittersweet reminder of who we were before the world weighed heavy on our shoulders. Yet as I sifted through the photographs, a chill settled in the pit of my stomach, a transition from warmth to an uneasy confusion. There interspersed with our shared joys were images of her and him, a flickering specter from her past, the ghost of a former love that lingered like a shadow I could no longer ignore. The specifics blurred into focus, presenting the face of a man whose smile could ignite a spark, one that clearly did not belong to me. He was handsome in an effortless sort of way, radiating that bold charm that often eclipses the stillness of steadfast devotion. I felt nausea rise as the implications began to crystallize before me, each snapshot a dagger thrust. A spectator perhaps, or merely a fleeting moment in her ongoing narrative, a character playing his role to an audience who would always crave the original script. My thoughts were a maelstrom, a cacophony that left me reeling. As I staggered to a nearby chair, I grappled with the emotions that threatened to engulf me whole. I felt adrift in an ocean of doubt. Was love truly enough to transcend the shadows of yesterday? My grip on the letters tightened, clenching them as if they held the answer to my burgeoning anguish. But with every line I read, every image that burned itself into my memory, I found myself spiraling deeper into a labyrinth of uncertainty. This wasn't merely a confrontation with the past, this was a confrontation with her, a woman I thought I understood, a partner I believed committed to building our future. Now I was left standing in the remnants of an emotional explosion, faced not only with images of her former self, but also with the realization that my quest for clarity might shatter the very foundation of our relationship. I slowly slid the letters back into their box, an echo of a decision now looming over me. Would I confront her with this knowledge, open up the floodgates of doubt and resentment that threatened to drown us, or would I bury my findings, pushing them beneath layers of unspoken pain in the interest of preserving the fragile bond we still shared? In that moment, the reality settled heavy on my chest. I was not only wrestling with her past, but with my own insecurities, my aspirations shattered by the weight of unresolved betrayal. It was a reckoning I couldn't ignore. The gravity of my discovery was more than just photographs and letters. It signaled the unraveling of who I thought we were, and the dawning realization that the battle ahead would be fought not just against the echoes of her history, but against the insecurities woven into the fabric of our love. And I was left wondering, what in its wake would be left of us? The house was silent, save for the soft whisper of the autumn breeze that slipped through the cracked window. I sat on the edge of our bed, the photos spread out before me like the remnants of a shattered dream. Each image was a portal, an echo of laughter and intimacy that didn't belong to me. They were stolen moments, captured in frames that told stories I had never been a part of, tales woven in the fabric of my wife's past. I leaned forward, my heart heavy, as the weight of betrayal pulled me into a labyrinth of memories, spiraling through the corridors of time where love once thrived. I recalled the day we met, the sun-drenched park where she appeared as if the very light had conspired to shape her. The laughter at her silly jokes, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about her dreams, her ambition intricately weaving into the tapestry of our shared lives. It was a time before the lingering shadows took residence in our hearts, a time before I had to wrestle with the facets of love and possession intertwined within the confines of our fragile bond. But in that moment, staring at the unfamiliar smiles of the man who once held her heart, I felt something shift inside, a cold, suffocating realization that love had a way of weathering storms until it became a mere whisper of its original self. The dreams we built were now penned over a dark ink that smeared the pages of our story. I remembered her voice, the way it danced through my mind in chambers of warmth, now replaced by echoes of doubt and jealousy. Images filled with laughter, sunsets shared, and moments drenched in the intoxicating elixir of connection wrapped around me. But who watched those sunsets with her? Who tasted the bittersweet cup of love, the longing, the challenges, and the mistakes they navigated as partners? It was him. The ghost of her past had taken form, twisting the knife of insecurity deeper into my already strained heart. I recalled her late-night phone calls, the slight furrow forming on her brow as she tapped away at her messages in the dark, often claiming it was only work. Yet her laughter changed. It had an unfamiliar lilt, one that danced too freely for comfort. How had I turned a blind eye? Questions mingled with resentment, each one like a thread pulling the fabric of my sanity apart. Essentially, I was woven into the very narrative that felt untouchable, unchangeable. The realization stung fiercely. I slowly picked up one of the photographs, their faces tilted together like seamless puzzle pieces. My grip tightened as I tried to drown out the anguish that coursed through my veins. Betrayal sheathed itself in layers of longing, the kind that thrived on remembrance and rekindling warmth. What had I missed while I was buried beneath the accolades of my career, focused on building an empire rather than nurturing the woman who had once opened her heart to me? The irony wasn't lost amid the encroaching dark. The ambition that once inspired me now felt like a chain, holding me back from establishing the very love I had sought to protect. As I sat in that room, the weight of questions pressed firmly against my chest. How long had this been going on? Did she still think of him? Did my presence feel like a gilded cage born from affection twisted into obligation? With each thought, a tidal wave of memories threatened to inundate me, each image from the burrow of my subconscious igniting flickers of jealousy that were both familiar and foreign. I pushed the scattered photographs to the side, trying to make sense of it all. Memories began unraveling like threads pulled beneath a relentless hand, dragging me backward. I saw glimmers of my wife's past in her smile, her mannerisms. Each laugh shared over dinner echoed with the residue of shared sighs and secret glances exchanged with someone else. How many times had I glimpsed my own shadow next to the shadow of her past? The arcane notion of being cheated on twisted and morphed into a mirror reflecting my own failures. The more I thought, the sharper the edges of reality became. Regret etched itself into my veins, reminding me of missed opportunities, unspoken words. It became apparent that we had both opted to turn towards ambitions rather than face the encroaching shadows of our discontent. Had we become so entrenched in our worlds that we failed to connect on the level that truly mattered? As I tried to piece together her story, I found myself asking when I had last veered from my own ambitions to simply ask her, "What do you want?" I could feel anger rising, a tumultuous tide that threatened to consume me, yet there was also a gossamer thread of instinct urging me to understand, to reach beyond the breach that had formed between us. I didn't want to become just another casualty, a footnote in the memoir of our lives. Suddenly I remembered the first time she had shared snippets of their past, a wistful smile cloaked in nostalgia, her fingers tracing the edge of her glass while she recalled silly adventures from an old life. I had stayed silent, transfixed, caught between the nostalgia of her joy and the ghost of my unacknowledged hurt. How many reminiscences went unsaid, all while my heart ached to reclaim the connection we once had. It was a delicate balance, yet I had failed to grasp its gravity. That was when I felt it, the defining moment when love turned into desperation, ambition faded into apathy, and two people stumbled blindly into each other's hearts, leaving a trail of jagged memories in their wake. I had to make a choice. Would I confront the ex in her memories, solidifying his place in the fractures of our lives, or would I dig deeper, searching for the roots of what once connected us? Lost in this tempest of self-discovery, I could barely grasp the weight of the decision that loomed ahead of me. Time was a double-edged sword, slicing through the fabric of my loyalty while urging me to reclaim the love that once felt inseparable. I had to uncover the truth, not just about her but also about myself, the resonance of betrayal, ambition yet unfulfilled, and the haunting underneath it all. Hope that somewhere in the ruins we could rebuild something stronger. The room was thick with an almost palpable tension as I faced her across the dining table, the remnants of what was once our shared life now feeling like a relic of someone else's story. Pale light cast shadows on her features, transforming the familiar into something foreign and unrecognizable. "How could you do this?" My voice broke the silence, a combination of disbelief and anger coloring every word. "What was I to you, a placeholder?" She looked down, her fingers tracing the edge of a ceramic plate, the quiet act igniting a firestorm of rage within me. "This isn't easy for me either," she finally said, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. "But it wasn't like that. You don't understand." "Understand what exactly?" I threw my hands up in frustration. "That you kept a ghost right next to me. That while I poured my heart into our life you were what, reminiscing about your past, finding solace in someone else's arms." Each word fell from my lips like stone, heavy and unyielding. "Jason, please," she paused, struggling against the tide of tears that welled in her eyes. "It was a mistake. We were broken after the move, after our plans fell apart. I thought I could just look back. It helped me to remember who I was before all this. But what about who you are now? Did he help you find that?" My heart raced as rage clouded any lingering sense of understanding I had left. I fought to keep my emotions in check, feeling like a dam on the verge of breaking. "Every time I looked at you, I believed in what we were building. The love we were creating. I wish I hadn't found those pictures. I wish I could unsee all of it. I didn't want you to find out this way." The pleading in her voice cut through me, a knife twisting further into an already jagged wound. "You think this is easy for me? I'm scared. I don't want to hurt you, Jason. I loved you, loved me," I scoffed, the sound bitter on my tongue. "You can't use past tense when your heart is still mapped out on Confusion. I gestured wildly, feeling unmoored from everything I believed. Can we even come back from this? Is there anything left for us? I don't know, she whispered, her gaze falling to the table as if staring down at the life we built together. I didn't want to lose you, Jason. I acted out in frustration, drank too much, lost myself. I thought about my past, about him, but you were still my present. Your present, the word echoed like a death knell, each syllable compounded by the growing chasm between us. Can you really say that? Because what I see is someone who's been skimming two lives, mine and his, each at different times, never fully committing to either. Her composure wavered, tears now glistening like morning dew against the harsh reality of our circumstances. You don't know how hard it's been, she shot back, her voice quaking with emotion. After the move, everything felt heavy. I felt trapped, suffocated. I thought I'd never be able to put pen to paper again, and him, he was just an escape. An escape. I echoed, my voice trembling with bitterness. Did you even think about what you were doing to me, to us? Each question felt more like a weight pressing down on my chest, siphoning the air from my lungs. I know I hurt you. I didn't think. I was just trying to reclaim a piece of myself, she started, but I cut her short, no longer able to listen to her justifications. You think that playing with fire doesn't burn? I've been playing with my heart and now I feel like a fool. I trembled, emotion spilling into my voice. I thought we could build a future together, dream together, but now I don't know how to look at you without seeing that past, without seeing him. I wish I could take it back, Jason, she said, her voice cracking, surrendering. You mean everything to me. I was lost and I thought maybe revisiting old feelings would help me figure out what I wanted. I was wrong. I should have turned to you. Should have, I hissed, the anguish spilling over. That should have been the first thought, the only thought. I wish you could see how much trust you've shattered. How everything feels like it's unraveling. A long, heavy silence stretched between us, the weight of betrayed trust and lost intimacy hanging in the air like a storm cloud. I turned away, struggling to swallow the lump building in my throat, the bitter taste of misplaced love and nostalgia mixing into an unspeakable concoction of heartbreak. As I looked out the window, the world seemed unaware of the chaos behind our closed doors, oblivious to the unraveling of our once beautiful tapestry. But here we were, two broken souls bound by the past, caught in a moment where love had morphed into a battlefield and I had no idea how to emerge whole. The office was dimly lit, the glow of the city skyline seeping through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting elongated shadows across the polished hardwood floor. I sat at my desk, the weight of my thoughts heavier than the laptop that flickered before me. I could hear the muffled bustle of the city, the hustle of ambition that seemed to thrive outside these walls, a stark contrast to the turmoil that brewed in my chest. It was a strange dichotomy, one I had found myself marred in more frequently as of late. In moments of solitude, I could hear my wife's laughter dance through the hallways of my mind, a melody that once filled our home with warmth now felt like a haunting echo. The photographs I discovered were a stark reminder that love, once a fortress, could also become a prison when betrayal creeps in. But as I found my heart in mental disarray, another part of me, perhaps the louder part, whispered of ambition, of career, of a future waiting to be seized apart from the wreckage of my relationship. I remembered the pitch meeting that had rattled me awake just days prior. It was an opportunity like no other, a chance to ascend the corporate ladder in a company that had once only recognized my potential superficially. The exhilaration of success had always thrilled me. I had poured my ambition into every waking hour, dreaming of climbing to the peak where work would meld into achievement. Yet as my mind raced forward to confront the future, a shadow from the past stopped me in my tracks, the photographs of my wife, the unthinkable, the raw betrayal. That day in the conference room, I had stood before my colleagues, my superiors, the atmosphere thick with expectation. The project was a joint endeavor, yet it became painfully clear that my passion, to stand out, to deliver something exceptional, had intertwined with the pain of betrayal. As I spoke about the innovative strategies that could propel our company ahead, my gaze inadvertently landed on Rachel, the woman who had replaced my wife in many ways. She was fierce, ambitious, and somehow seemed to thrive on the same suffering that fueled me. Could it be that ambition was our shared bedrock despite its cost? The interplay of desire and ambition wrapped around me like a vine, squeezing tighter with every word spoken aloud in that meeting. Did I find solace in work to escape the betrayal? Or was this corporate climb just another form of running away? In a world that pushed us to choose between love and ambition, hadn't I unwittingly charged towards the latter while everything I cherished lay crumbling at home? And yet, as I crossed the threshold from my personal realm into my professional one, I knew I had an eye on more than just the next promotion. I was recently informed of a vacancy for a higher management position. The office whispers anticipatory, tinged with rivalry that was as thick as the smoke from the city's constant motion. Every glance cast my way seemed laced with questions. Was I the one they were waiting to topple, or was I the one standing at the brink of greatness? But here lay another paradox. The unraveling of my marriage had merely intensified my desire for success. It was not just a career, it was validation. Somewhere along the line, I convinced myself that achieving all my aspirations would somehow dull the pain of my crumbled heart. The ambition that had once driven me forward was now strapped to the shackles of betrayal. I thought of the conversation I had with my brother last week, standing on his balcony, drink in hand, overlooking the city's glimmering darkness. "You have to let her go," he said, his voice a mixture of assertiveness and concern. "Either work this out with her or find a way to move on, but holding on will only drag you under." But how could I accept moving on when there was a part of me still clinging to the nostalgia of our love? I realized then that ambition had become my refuge, the chase for success creating a cocoon around me. Every deal I inked, every late night spent poring over spreadsheets consumed me, allowing a brief escape from the churning thoughts of betrayal. Yet beneath this facade lay an empty shell, hollow and echoing reminders of what I had once held dear. As I rifled through the projects awaiting my guidance, I couldn't escape the thoughts of our last vacation, tucked away in the corners of my memory. Our laughter in that quaint little cafe, the way her eyes sparkled in the setting sun, now everything felt tainted as though the photographs I had unearthed had rusted all that was golden between us. With every passing hour, I would catch myself wandering back to the cusp of a profound realization. I could achieve everything I had ever wanted within my career, but it would be without the one who truly mattered. The juxtaposition of love against ambition revealed a truth less spoken. Success might earn me accolades, but it would never fill the void growing within me, nor would it erase the fractures in my marriage. Work became not just a distraction but a testament, a way to prove to myself that I could rise above this heartache, that I was indeed worthy of success. Yet, as those thoughts became my mantra, a whisper of doubt resided amidst the ambition's roar. Was I choosing a future devoid of love to survive the present haunted by betrayal? And if I succeeded, what would be waiting for me at the end? Still, my every waking moment teetered on the edge of that decision. The career path I had set illuminated before me, but at a cost. Each step forward held the weight of a heart never rebuilt. And in the delicate balance of ambition versus love, I began to feel the cracks widening. The darker the shadows grew, the clearer the path became, caught in the tumult of conflicted desires. Would I find solace in my ambition, or would it ultimately leave me seeking a connection that no success could ever replace? In that moment of reflection, I found myself at a crucial crossroads, the past echoing with urgency as the future loomed, beckoning me with its siren call. It's strange how a moment of disbelief can twist into something much deeper, how a glance at a screen can reshape the contours of your reality. My heart, still pounding like a drum at a funeral, thudded in rhythm with the turbulence inside me. Those images flickered before my eyes with an unsettling familiarity, each one a window into a past I thought I had brushed away. The laughter frozen in pixels, the warmth of a smile that once ignited affection now seared me like the flames that consumed everything I held dear. I sank into the couch, a fugitive fleeing from my own thoughts, as shadows of guilt and uncertainty danced around me. I thought I knew her, every detail painstakingly etched into my memory, from the way her laughter twinkled like stars in the vastness of night to the subtle warmth of her hand resting in mine. Yet here I was, a sailor cast adrift, lost in a sea of doubt. How could I navigate these watery depths when all I had were the echoes of whispers that seemed to taunt me with betrayal? As I gazed blankly at the wall, time began to unravel. Each tick of the clock felt like a reminder of my inadequacies, a countdown to a confrontation I could no longer avoid. I pictured the life we had built together, brick by brick, only now to see my foundations cracking under the weight of an unseen storm. What did I mean to her? A fleeting chapter in her story, or was I in her eyes the lead actor wielding the script of our lives? The photographs resonated like haunting melodies, strings tugging at fragile parts of my heart. Linea's soft gaze radiated warmth in those moments captured, a comfort juxtaposed against the biting cold of the betrayal I felt creeping in. Nostalgia strangled me, lingering reminders of who she was with him, what she lost when she chose me. I struggled with the images in my mind, replaying them in an endless loop, dissecting each detail, each nuance I had missed. Did I replace him or merely fill a void she refused to acknowledge? "She chose me," I muttered under my breath, though my voice held no conviction. Doubt loomed over me, a dark cloud casting shadows over the sunlit memories I cherished, the ones we created on the paths of shared dreams and whispered promises. Yet what was it they say? Love is blind. Was I merely a willing participant in this game of illusions, supposing I could build an identity that eclipsed the past? The air grew heavy, thick with unspoken words I yearned to voice but couldn't articulate. I thought back to moments we spent together, evenings wrapped in each other's warmth, nights celebrating victories both small and grand. Yet like a cut deeply carved, everything felt tainted by this new reality. What had I done to deserve this? Had my dreams been so grand that they rendered me blind to fundamental truths? As the dusk settled, I found myself packing the confines of our living room, my feet tracing the exact path I'd walked countless times. Yet today, it felt different. It felt prophetic. Could I confront her? What words could encapsulate my pain without plunging me deeper into despair? I anguish over the risk of exposing my vulnerabilities, the jagged edges of my trust left exposed. Each moment I delayed, I felt myself spilling into darkness, tattered and frayed, fighting against an enemy I hardly knew. A knot tightened in my stomach as memories resurfaced, her laughter when he was mentioned, the subtle flinch whenever I spoke of our future. Was it guilt or nostalgia that laced her voice? Was it bitterness that lingered behind her eyes when she thought I didn't notice? The weight of her indecision constricted around me, a vice that rendered me powerless and alone. A voice whispered in the back of my mind, "You're just a bridge waiting for someone to cross back to their first love." Rage simmered beneath the surface, an angry tide against the tranquil facade of my existence. I longed to scream, to collapse beneath the burden of a secret that felt heavier than the stones of betrayal. But stronger than the rage, a bewildering sadness rooted itself in my chest as I recalled the vows we exchanged, the promises of love and unwavering fidelity. What did it mean when the past loomed larger than our reality? Was it ambition that fueled my spiraling doubt? I had fought tooth and nail in the arena of my career, willing to lay everything on the line to elevate myself above the fray. In those moments of struggle, had I unknowingly blinked away the subtle cues of her discontent? Now, as I stood at this crossroads, I found myself questioning the very shackles that bound us, the aspirations we built side by side, now seemingly a portrait of futility. I stopped packing and closed my eyes, breathing deeply and slowly emerging from the tempest within. Linnea was not merely a footnote in my story, she was the protagonist in her own tale. I needed to decipher her journey without prejudice, to listen and understand without the filter of my own trauma. What had she sacrificed? What dreams had she buried beneath the weight of our shared expectations? As darkness fell outside, I finally felt the tears prick against my eyelids, an unrestrained release of all that I had bottled up inside. Each droplet represented my fragility, the vulnerability that threatened to expose my raw self. Would she understand? Would she see me not as the harbinger of jealousy and insecurity but as a partner yearning for her truth? Amidst the swirling chaos, clarity began to emerge. I realized I was drowning in my own tumult and needed to navigate this storm instead of allowing it to carry me away. It was time to embrace vulnerability, confront the shadows, and accept that sometimes vulnerability unveils the deepest connections. But first, I needed to chart the course through this tumultuous sea of doubt and uncover what lay beneath the surface of Linnea's hesitations. My heart braced for the storm to come, hopping against hope that on the other side of this tempest lay a safe harbor we could share, if only we dared to seek it together. I sat on the edge of our unmade bed, staring at the scattered remnants of what once felt so holy. The clothes she had worn, the faint scent of her perfume still lingering in the air. It was a cruel reminder of the bond that now seemed frayed at the edges. Betrayal hung thick in the atmosphere like a storm cloud ready to burst, and in its wake my heart raced with a potent mix of sorrow and ambition. I needed a plan, a way to regain control over the unraveling strands of my life. Every moment spent dwelling on her past with him cramped my thoughts, twisting them into knots of anger and confusion. How could she hide this? The photographs, the messages, each a thread that connected her to a life I'd never truly known. As I sifted through them again, a familiar fire ignited within me. It wasn't merely about revenge, it was about reclaiming my sense of self, about flipping the narrative from victim to architect of my fate. But how? Revenge is a dangerous game, one that can easily consume the heart. I knew this all too well, a lesson I'd learned in my youth as I battled a world determined to knock me down. Still, a part of me clung to this idea that something needed to be done. After all, how long could I tread water while drowning in doubt? The whispers of resentment beckoned me to act. My mind drifted back to that night, the echoes of laughter and the toast we'd shared, breathless with intimacy and promise. That vision morphed into his face, the man I'd now come to loathe, and it pushed me further into my thoughts. I needed leverage, a means to demonstrate that the past cannot simply be erased, that love demands honesty, and that betrayal, like a shadow, can never be fully flicked away. Plans began to crystallize, unfurling like the sails of a ship catching wind. I would set my boundaries, establish my power within this relationship and the larger world beyond it. I grabbed my notepad, each blank page a testament to the strategies forming in my mind. Step 1, make her see, I wrote, words scrawling desperately across the page, how her past and present intertwine. It wasn't about making her suffer, it was about revealing truths she had cloaked in silence. I wanted to show her that the walls she'd built were transparent to me, how foolish it felt for her to believe she could simply brick up her past and expect me to be okay with that. I would let her know that I had seen the photographs, felt the tremors of betrayal, and still I was there, steadfast yet seething beneath the surface. Next, I considered him. What did I know of this man? Every detail I could unearth about their relationship was a weapon in my arsenal. Their history could become the foundation of my plan, a true confrontation, one designed to hold a mirror up to both of them. I wrote down lists of subtle inquiries I'd make to piece his life together, to nudge it into my scope. The universe had gifted me knowledge, it was high time I wielded it like a sword. Step 2, draw him out, I scribbled, picturing how to expose him to the light I now embraced, the aftermath of his choices. Maybe an opportunity would arise, a chance encounter in the coffee shop where I knew he went most mornings. I would let them cross paths, give her the gift of confrontation without even raising my voice. The intricate dance of fate, finding balance in my carefully laid designs, it made the pit in my stomach churn with anticipation. When I thought of her reaction, it was a cocktail of fear and excitement. Would she finally understand the depth of what she had done? Or would she retreat further into her defenses, fending off the truths that were clawing to break free? I hoped for enlightenment but prepared for chaos. It was a risk I was willing to take. As I paced the room, the thoughts cascaded like a torrent. Revenge was a fickle friend, a double-edged sword that could just as easily cut me as it would him. I needed distance, perspective, like a painter stepping back to see the fullness of their canvas. I was realizing that in my heart of hearts, this was less about destruction and more about raw honesty. I sought a confrontation that could remove the veil of deceit, shattering the barriers both she and I had built. Step 3, the confrontation, I wrote, my heart pounding with each syllable. I imagined a place framed by the light of day, an atmosphere heavier than usual, the air crackling with unresolved tension. The truth would unfurl like an unspooled reel of film, exposing every emotion, every regret, spilling forth a confession baptized in vulnerability. Yet, a quiet voice within me whispered warnings. Revenge could capsize more than just a relationship, it could drown dreams and aspirations yet to be fully realized. I took a breath, steadying myself against the weight of my thoughts. This was not simply a scheme to enact revenge, it needed to be part of a greater quest for understanding, clarity, and perhaps redemption for all of us. I resolved to balance act with intention. With each plan taking shape, I promised to reassess my motives, keeping a tether on my desires not to destroy but to compel her towards a profound reckoning. The stakes were high, and as I conjured the outlines of a plot that felt all too real, I understood that this would be my bridge, a passage not merely to vengeance but to a reckoning of our intertwined souls. Suddenly the woman I thought I knew, the one standing at the precipice of my wrath and clarity alike, seemed less like an enemy and more like a lost partner in a tempest, both of us clutching at the remnants of hope beneath the swirl of uncharted waters. The map I was forging would lead us into the maelstrom, but perhaps it would also pave the way back to shore. Whatever awaited us at the end of this path remained shrouded in shadows, but for now I had a plan, and it was time to set it into motion. I spent the night wrestling with memories that clawed at the edges of my mind, moments of laughter, whispered secrets, and promises sealed under the soft glow of our shared world. They spiraled around me like ghosts, shapes bathed in the pale light of betrayal. I could still hear her voice, sweet yet tinged with a note of something I hadn't recognized before. Was it guilt? Regret? As dawn broke, spilling golden hues across the room, it felt like the world outside had conspired against me, casting shadows where there should be light. The walls felt different that morning, suffocating. Each creak of the floorboards resonated with my unsteady heartbeat. I padded through the house, a specter in my own life, searching for shards of the past to piece together a future clouded in uncertainty. I stumbled into the kitchen, the scent of burnt coffee mingling with the stale air, and recalled our mornings spent here, laughter bubbling over breakfast as we plotted grand adventures. Yet now that familiar rhythm felt broken, twisted by the revelation I couldn't shake. They had laughed together, shared those sacred sunrises while I was left in the shadows, a mere spectator of dreams that were never meant to be mine. I grabbed my phone, the device buzzing with notifications I ignored. Messages from friends, coworkers, life continuing unimpeded, while mine felt trapped in a still frame of anguish. As I swiped through my social media, images of couples basked in intertwined affection pricked at my resolve, the perfect snapshots of lives untarnished by secrets. I forced myself to breathe, to focus, yet the gnawing ache grew, tendrils of jealousy seeping into the cracks of my heart. A part of me wanted to reach through the screen and reveal my truths, to expose the facade of happiness for the mirage it often was, but there was no sense in screaming into the void. Instead, I resolved to confront her, the words coiling like a serpent ready to strike. I would ask her, demand that she open her heart in ways she had closed it off to me. As the clock ticks nearer to her returning home, an anticipation mixed with dread bundled in my chest. Each second felt like a betrayal, time encroaching, taunting my emotions, daring me to break the silence. When the door clicked open, I stood ready, the air between us thick with unspoken challenges. Her eyes caught mine, flickering with confusion and a hint of fear. "Hi, honey," she greeted, an earnestness in her tone that felt foreign in light of everything. "Can we talk?" My voice was steady, controlled, a stark contrast to the tempest raging within. "Of course," she replied, glancing around as if seeking refuge from the storm I was prepared to unleash. We settled at the kitchen table, the very heart of our home turned into a battleground. I studied her, the flicker of shadows dancing across her features, and felt an urge to reach across the divide and erase the distance, to reclaim what was ours. Yet the photos weighed heavily in the back of my mind, spectral reminders of a love that had slipped through her fingers and into another man's grasp. "Do you want to tell me about the past?" I started, my voice a low rasp. Her expression dimmed momentarily, vulnerability seeping through the cracks as she squared her shoulders. "I thought we agreed to let go of that. You can't just let go of something that defined who you were." I felt the anger surge, hot and volatile, trembling along the edges of my composure. "You were with him for years, Amy. How could you pretend like nothing happened?" A silence settled, thick, suffocating, pregnant with everything left unsaid. Her lips parted, then closed tightly as if containing answers that were all too painful to voice. I could see her working through her emotions, regret, maybe even guilt, chiseling away at her defenses. "I didn't think it would matter," she murmured, avoiding my gaze. "I thought I could just move on." "Move on?" I echoed, bitterness leaking into my tone. "You chose to keep that past alive, hidden behind closed doors while I opened my heart to you without reservations. You took advantage when I was at my most vulnerable." Her eyes shimmered, an emotional tide threatening to spill over, and yet her face hardened, a mask of resolve replacing the softness I once adored. You think I wanted this? I tried to cut ties, but some things are easier to hide than confront, I interrupted, each word an executioner's blow that severed the threads of our connection. I deserve to know. I've dedicated my life to you, Amy, to our life together. Was it all just a facade? I loved you, she whispered fiercely, her voice a desperate plea against the weight of my accusations. But I was afraid of my past, afraid of judgment. I buried it and thought it was buried with it. Betrayal has a way of uprooting buried things, I countered, the sharpness in my voice cutting the air between us. I took a breath, trying to steady myself, to weave clarity into the chaos. I don't want you to only be a reflection of who you've been or what you've done. I want to know all of you, the good, the bad, everything. But she was right, I was terrified of the truth that loomed. The truth that our love had not shielded us from the past, nor was it as substantial as I once believed. It slithered beneath our feet, a specter that threatened to rise with each conflict, each whispered secret. Here we were, unraveling, both desperate to cling to what we had built, yet burdened by the weight of unspoken truths and half-hearted promises. I don't know if I can handle more heartbreak, I confessed, my voice wavering. But I don't know how to move forward without knowing your battles, your wounds, everything that brought you here. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and I felt the stirrings of compassion intertwining with my anger. The veil between us was fatting as we stood stripped bare of facades, fighting for clarity in the aching grayness of our shared history. I reached out, hesitating before brushing my fingers against hers, a tentative bridge in the realms of uncertainty. Can we start anew, together? She pleaded, her voice rawer than it had ever been in all our years together. In that moment my heart wavered on the brink of hope. It was a glimmer of light amidst the storm, a chance to confront entwined pasts and shape a future molded by the truth. Yet the route to healing was fraught with unknowns, demanding my resolve as we stood on that fragile line together, teetering between desired trust and the haunting mistrust that had crept in uninvited. In our search for honesty, the promise of regeneration hung unnaturally in the air, its path lit not by certainty but by the flicker of a shared, fragile spirit, one that yearned still to be rekindled. The tension hung in the air like a storm about to break, each minute stretching into an eternity as I sat across from my unexpected ally. Sarah, my wife's best friend since childhood, had always been a voice of reason in the maelstrom of my emotions. But now she had transformed into something else, a reluctant accomplice, thrust into the heart of a betrayal I never saw coming. The way she regarded me, her eyes flickering with a mixture of empathy and trepidation, told me that she understood the gravity of what was at stake. Listen, James, she said, her voice steady yet soft. I know this isn't easy for you. I can't pretend that I understand the depth of your pain, but I want to help you navigate this. We have to act carefully. I shifted in my seat, recalling the images I had stumbled upon, photos that crashed over me like a relentless wave, leaving a sobering chill in their wake. Help me how everyone keeps telling me to breathe, to not make impulsive decisions, but I just feel lost. The words hung stagnant in the air between us, weighted with unprocessed fury and the sting of betrayal. Because you're angry, and rightly so, she replied, a hint of steel creeping into her tone. You have every right to feel that way. But what do you want out of this? Revenge, or do you want your life back? As she posed the question, I found myself grappling with its implications. A part of me hungered for revenge, for some cathartic release that would justify the torment I felt, the desperate need to turn the tables. Yet another part whispered that revenge might only entangle me deeper in the web of pain, trapping me in a cycle I couldn't escape. I just want to understand why, I admitted finally, the vulnerability in my voice surprising me. Why him? Why any of it? Was I ever enough? We can get that answer, James, if you let me help. Her hand reached out, covering mine in a gesture that was surprisingly comforting. This isn't just about the pictures, it's about the life you built together. It's about the dreams you shared that now all feel shattered. I nodded, momentarily stifled by emotions that cloaked my heart like heavy fog. And what if she's made her choice? What if I'm just standing here, a statue made of sorrow, while she moves forward? Then you gain clarity, she responded, her voice sharpening like a knife cutting through my malaise. You have to confront her and him, to face the truth that you've avoided. Only then can you reclaim your narrative. I pulled my hand away, the idea of confrontation sticking to me like a bitter pill lodged in my throat. But the deeper I sank into the pit of betrayal, the more I could clarify my vision. What do you suggest then? I asked, a reluctant determination edging into my tone. How do we turn the tables? Sarah leaned in, her tone shifting to one of conspiratorial fervor, illuminated by a glimmer of something of fierce light. We gather information that can expose their relationship not just to you but to everyone else. We make sure she realizes the gravity of her choice and her innocent fling doesn't look so innocent anymore. The words ignited a flame within me that flickered dangerously close to obsession. You mean, we do to her what she's done to me? Yes, but it's not about becoming a mirror of betrayal, it's about lighting the way to truth. You need to know what lies beneath their polished facades. We can start with the conversations they've overlooked, texts, emails, anything that could prove there's more to their story than just a few careless snapshots. The thrill of the plan sent a shiver through me, renewing a sense of purpose I thought long extinguished. Together in this, she assured me, now with a fierce gleam in her eyes. As we left the table, the haze of doubt began to lift, replaced by the pulse of ambition and uncertainty. Perhaps this unexpected alliance could lead to something more, a reclamation of my own agency in the face of heartache. I felt the stirrings of something different bubbling within, anticipation coiling like a serpent ready to strike. The game had changed, and I was no longer a mere participant but a player ready to reclaim his sanity. And in that moment, standing shoulder to shoulder with Sarah, I dared to dream of a future unshackled by betrayal. I could taste copper in my mouth, the metallic tinge of anxiety that refused to dissipate. It lingered as I stared at the four walls of my ordinary existence, now transformed into a prison of doubts and shrouded betrayal. The photographs, those simple yet haunting images of my wife with another man, smiles shared, intimate moments captured, all cut deeper than I anticipated. I had thought that I understood her, that our life together was a fortress built on trust. Yet here I was, a solitary figure adrift in a tumultuous sea, my heart a pendulum swinging between disbelief and rage. It was in that chaos, amidst the whirlwind of emotions battling for dominance within me, that clarity began to seep through. I realized a crucial truth. I had to take control of my life, not just the relationship that seemed to unravel before my eyes, but also the narrative that had been written over years of shared dreams and ambitions. I grabbed my coat from the chair, the fabric cold against my fingertips, and stepped outside. The air was sharp, biting at my resolve, each gust a reminder of my solitude. The world continued to spin around me, full of mundane conversations and busy lives, while I stood on the precipice of an emotional storm. The vibrant vibrancy of spring was juxtaposed with my inner chill, as flowers blossomed nearby, oblivious to the chaos that threatened to engulf me. As I wandered through the familiar streets, my mind spiraled back to our earlier days when laughter had come easily and love had felt like the simplest truth of our existence. I recalled us lying on a sun-soaked blanket, the world around us fatting as we whispered dreams into the ether. But dreams, it seemed, could hold the bitterest of ironies. Had I been naive to think happiness could persevere in the shadows of such hefty ambition? There we stood, poised between the responsibilities tugging at our hearts and the dreams we dared to pursue. With determination etched upon my brow, I headed towards the park, my instinct leading me to the sanctuary of nature. It was here, beneath the ancient trees that had witnessed countless lives intersecting, some blossoming, some wilting, that I sought solace. I found a bench nestled in a quiet corner, away from the chaos of children laughing and couples strolling, a place where I could dismantle my thoughts piece by fragile piece. I thought about my wife, her laughter playing in the back of my mind like a favorite song remembered but filtered through a dissonant chord. Each smile recorded in those photographs resurfaced, yet mingled now with the bitter pangs of betrayal. I had envisioned a future where ambition was not our rival but our ally, bearing the fruits of our hard-won love, a partnership flourishing in the glow of mutual support. Yet underneath that facade lay buried fears, insecurities about my worth both as a partner and in my career. Was I ever truly enough? I took a deep breath, allowing the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine to cleanse my spirit. In the white space of loss, I realized that it was not merely revenge I sought, but the demands of retribution had masked a deeper yearning, self-discovery. Who was I really? A husband trapped in a cycle of resentment, or a man on the verge of redefining his identity? As the minutes dragged into hours, clarity whispered through the branches of the trees, urging me to sift through the inner turmoil. I felt the weight of ambition pressing against my chest. I had always aimed for stability, seeking to build something solid and enduring. Yet love, fragile and spontaneous, warred against my desire for control. The tension spoke volumes about my failures, not her betrayal, but my unwillingness to navigate the murky waters of my own expectations. This was a turning point for me. I needed to reclaim the narrative, not just through vengeance, but through unwavering honesty. I pictured my revenge, a calculated act parading as a consequence, a twist destined to cascade back onto her. But how could I inflict pain upon someone I still loved enough to reflect on our shared dreams? That question hung heavy in the air. I closed my eyes, grappling with the disarray until only one truth remained. I had to confront her, not in anger but in a fierce demand for understanding. It was time to unveil the masquerade, to remove the facade, a marriage built upon ambition while love languished in the background. Perhaps betrayal was a cry for help disguised as infidelity, an acknowledgement of the life we attempted to curate. I rose from the bench, feeling lighter, the chaotic emotions settling like dust after a storm. The horizon shimmered before me, a promise to reclaim what was mine, not her heart, perhaps not even forgiveness, but a journey that would lead me to deeper self-awareness. I contemplated the possibilities unwrapping within me and awakening amidst the debris of our shared life. As I turned back to head home, I grasped the threads of my past, weaving them into a new understanding. Instead of letting betrayal guide my next steps, I would allow it to illuminate the shadows of my own insecurities, forcing me to confront what lay beneath, layer after layer, until I reached the core of my essence. My heart raced with each step, no longer weighted by expectations but ignited by a burgeoning resolve. I could carve out a path toward forgiveness, but first I had to navigate the difficult terrain of my own heart. I would emerge from this chaos, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a self-assured man prepared to redefine the narrative of my life, ready to forge my identity anew amidst the remnants of love, loss, and the ambition once thought to outweigh everything else. The silence of the apartment felt overwhelming, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath in anticipation of what would come next. Andrew sat on the edge of the couch, the soft fabric still warm from Maria's previous presence. He could still picture her, laughter spilling into the air like sunlight, but that light now felt so far removed from him. Every corner of this space seemed to echo with the weight of their recent revelations, those photographs that had felt like daggers to his heart. It was a wound that had opened deep within him, exposing the rawness of betrayal and the sharp sting of self-doubt. Andrew, the ghost of her voice drifted in his mind, soft and tender yet now laced with shades of tension. He had imagined conversations 1,000 times over, each encounter more intense than the last, but now the words eluded him as if they were cowardly children hiding from the storm. In this moment he understood that anger could only take him so far. The resentment coiled tightly in his chest, a heavy serpent that needed coaxing rather than confrontation. He allowed himself to reflect, to revisit those early days when love felt like an easy choice. Maria, with her infectious dreams and passionate aspirations, had drawn him in, and he had fallen willingly and entirely. Yet here he was, stripped bare by truth, standing against the gale of what they had become, the fabricated smiles, the bypassed conversations that lingered in the air like smoke from a flame now extinguished. His thoughts drifted back to the night he discovered the photos. The cloud of betrayal wasn't merely an act. It had etched an indelible mark on their relationship. How could the memories of laughter now intertwine so poignantly with images of jealousy? Could he ever believe again in the promise of love, or had they merely been clinging to the remnants of what once was? As he sat there, Andrew felt a shift in the air, a tension that had coiled in his gut now unfurling slowly like a flower opening to the sun. It dawned on him then that revenge held no charm in the sterile light of day. It was a transient illusion, captivating in its design but hollow in emotion. He had found himself at a crossroads, not of vengeance but rather of healing. What if he chose to dismantle the anger with understanding? He picked up the framed photo of them from the coffee table, a sun-drenched moment of a beach trip, smiles radiant and eyes sparkling with hope. In that image there lay a glimmer of truth about their love, buried beneath layers of hurt but not entirely erased. Perhaps they could salvage the remnants if he allowed himself the space to breathe and her the opportunity to explain. With the decision to heal coursing through him, Andrew stood, the weight of his past pulling him in one direction while the promise of what could be pulled him in another. He walked to the bedroom, the threshold marked by a moment of hesitation. Should he confront her? Should he leave the door ajar to let her in? In truth, he had to confront no one but himself first, the doubts, the fears, the very essence of his own identity that had been shaken to the core. Is love worth the fight? He whispered into the void, as though the question carried the power to reshape his reality. He had spent too long wearing the mask of the betrayed, but now he wondered, what if love transformed beyond betrayal? What if it evolved into something not defined by pain, but woven with grace and forgiveness? He heard her keys in the distance, the familiar clink echoing like a bell, reverberating with both dread and anticipation. As Maria stepped through the door, breathless from the world outside, Andrew turned, heart racing. They stood there, two figures caught in a moment of tension, and for an instant time paused, pushing the staff of emotions to the forefront. I saw you, he began, his voice steady despite the chaos roiling inside, but I didn't really look. He interrupted gently. Let's not run through the motions where we hurt each other. We need to speak without the shadows of the past looming over us. He stepped forward, choosing a path illuminated not by rage, but by curiosity about the person standing before him. Maria nodded, her own breath hitching in her throat, and they settled into the couch together, no longer adversaries but two souls seeking clarity. Words unfurled slowly, once stifled confessions emerged, stories of aspirations and fears, of navigating the seas of love amidst storms of temptation. As they spoke, Andrew realized that healing required more than acceptance, it necessitated vulnerability. The remnants of betrayal began to soften in the warmth of their honesty, reshaping into something new. Forgiveness came softly, like the dawn after a long night, illuminating the beat of their hearts as they began to weave threads of understanding together. In the aftermath of revelations, as laughter bubbled hesitantly back to the surface, Andrew understood that the path of healing was not linear. It was a winding journey fraught with unexpected detours. But in rebuilding and choosing to confront their shared vulnerabilities, he rediscovered the power of connection, one that transcended the shadows of the past. They were not just survivors of betrayal now, they were architects of a new dream, one filled with hope and renewed ambition. In that delicate space of rekindled intimacy, Andrew felt an inkling of peace settle within him, seeds of possibility taking root. In the heart of their rawness, he discovered that through pain, there could emerge a vulnerability that might ultimately become their greatest strength.